Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is a brand new episode of Bets and Banter. And today on the show, we are talking about UFC Vegas 83. It's headlined, of course, by a bantamweight showdown between Song Yadong and Chris Gutierrez, El Guapo. This should be a hell of a matchup. Two fun fighters, two guys that are going to bring the action, going to bring the fireworks on the feet. But we've got a bunch of fights to break down. And on Bets and Banter, we always start on the bottom of the card and work our way up. And we always do it with a couple of guests. We couldn't do it alone. Our guy Rich is out this week. So we brought in two heavy hitters, two friends of the show, returning guests that you know and love. So without further ado, we got our guy, the man of many names and aliases, the MMA line mover, Zach. Brother, welcome. How are you?
Brother, let's move these lines. Inshallah, the Jewish bettor is no more. And I got to tell you guys something, man. I started this betting thing, man, and I was with a bunch of friends, man. And they convinced me to make a page called The Jewish Bettor. And I would wear my mask. Basically, it was during COVID. I would wear my mask on my head. And I would wear it as a yarmulke. And that was basically my whole spiel. But that's it. That's all I had. So, I was just sick and tired of the Jewish jokes. I'm moving on. When I say moving on, I'm moving on to the MMA line mover. So I'm here to move these lines. And I already got one for you guys. So let's get this money this week.
I absolutely love it. You've got a whole narrative arc here. So my man just keeps evolving, right? Evolve or die. That's the name of the game. And we also got our friend Dravy pulling up. It's been a little while, but the last time he was on absolutely crushed the card. So it's a pleasure to have you back on, my brother. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me again, Liam. It's gonna be a great card. I can't wait to discuss about it. A lot of bet actually, so it's gonna be fun. Let's get it.
Cheers to that, my man. Let's do it. And guys, like I said off the top, we always start on this show from the bottom of the card and work our way on up. So without further ado, let's start with the women's strawweight division. And let's start with this dono from Lenny Main, the absolute GOAT. Says, Liam, what's up, bro? MMA line mover, what's good? We are going to start breaking down these fights for you guys. So thank you so much for kicking us off right. Rayanne Amanda is going to be taking on Talita Alankar. It's a 115-pound matchup. And Talita Alankar, Rayanne, Amanda, these are both Contender Series, prospects, so to speak. But you've got the 33-year-old, obviously, and Alankar kind of needs to get it moving right now, or it's not going to go anywhere as a professional, you would think. But she does have that prior experience in in jiu-jitsu that makes her really relevant in the mixed martial arts scene. It seems like the pacing is the biggest transition for her, right? Trying to figure out, can I get fights to the ground and can I do it efficiently, not tire myself out in the process and leave myself energy to work from on top? As for Rayanne Amanda, she's kind of bounced back and forth between weight classes, maybe a career best showing last time out, but we're now seeing her back in the women's 115-pound division. That's what the UFC has to offer. So I do think that both of these women quite small. I want to see the face-offs. I actually missed the face-offs, gentlemen. So that's something I'm going to have to go do my due diligence on probably here as we're talking. So why don't we kick it off with our brother Dravy here first? How do you feel about this fight? Do you feel like there's any betting value to be had?
I feel like the under is solid. I think this fight's pretty simple. I think Alankar is gonna be looking good early. She has the grappling upside, of course. She has a grappling background, but her grappling background is not that great, to be honest. She's 9-8, which is not that great, but she has never been submitted, so we can notice that. And yeah, I mean, I don't like her stand up. I don't like her cardio. That was a terrible look on Contender Series. She gassed out completely. She survived the third round. She didn't quit, but like the finish was there. And I just see her as a girl that is small and doesn't have good striking at all and bad cardio. So yeah, I'm looking to fade her in this spot. What I'm doing is I don't really want to get involved too much into this fight because both are making their debut. I think it's very low level, but Amanda Dos Santos is clearly a better striker. I don't think there's any question about that. But she has better cardio as well, and she can hit kind of hard. I'll say that. And she has good grappling. She's a black belt. She knows what she's doing on the ground. I don't think Alanker is gonna submit her. Maybe she's gonna win the first round, but after that, I think it's gonna get tricky for her, especially if Dos Santos can keep the fight standing. I feel like the last round is going to be a hard round to survive. And I just play at 1400. I play a spring call on round 3 for the Santos. Just a small shot. I think it's worth it, especially considering the Dana White Contender Series fight for Alencar. Maybe she get a sub early. Maybe she survived the third round, but at these odds, I think it's worth it. I think the Santos get a finish late.
You know, man, you're really talking my language. When you let off with the under in this fight, I was like, this guy, we're going to see things the same way this week. And, you know, when I'm looking at the board, one thing I try not to do is like pigeonhole myself in. If I don't feel it, I'm not going to get too heavily involved, right? And so the way that I looked at this fight is I structured it in terms of my betting document: Alencar KO, Alencar sub, Alencar decision, Alencar ITD, Dos Santos KO, Dos Santos sub, under 2.5, and fight doesn't go to distance. What is that? Violence any which way you could slice it, right? I just look at these two women and say to myself, a little bit undersized. I think there could be a substantial ground advantage for Alencar, especially when she's fresh, like you mentioned. But then what happens if the fight gets extended? Maybe she gasses out again. We saw last time horrible visuals. I think a more competent effort in that third round would have taken her out of the fight. However, that fight was on short notice. If you remember, on the Contender Series, her opponent was booked to fight somebody else. She steps up on short notice, thinks, hey, I'll just get the easy takedowns to sub. And then when things start going sideways, you know, I think it's almost the pressure you put on yourself as well. I got to my positions. I didn't get what I wanted. Now what's going to happen? And you start to doubt yourself. And I feel like she dealt with that because she's very inexperienced, right? And when you look at the Rayanne Amanda side, that I think is her biggest on paper advantage, way more MMA experience. However, we know that MMA is a finicky mistress, right? If she gets to one really bad position in the first round, we could just see the heavy hips, the jiu-jitsu experience, that background, get Alencar the win here. So fascinating fight, but I think that that's a very solid way to target it, especially from a theoretical perspective. What you always want to think about is, how can I find value? And I think most people think of women's MMA as automatic click on the fight goes the distance. For me, I'm leaning more towards this fight's probably going to end violently one way or the other. I think Alencar's live in the early going, and I think probably later on it shifts a lot more in terms of that finishing equity to the Dos Santos side. Why don't you give us the final verdict here, Zach? What do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, bro, I agree with the violence to a T, but the thing is, I just don't think Renzo Santos has like the most power, honestly, man. Like, that's how I want to put it, is the most power behind her punches. And I think if she's going to get a finish here, what's it going to be, by knockout? Like, it's women's MMA still at the end of the day, and I don't know if I trust all that with Renzo Santos. I know Alencar, you know, could be suspect with the cardio, with the stand-up. You know, like Liam mentioned, that was a short notice fight. I think Renzo Santos isn't that good on the mat, though. I think she could have some legitimate holes in her game. I was watching some fights where she was legitimately in clinch situations, on the ground in certain situations, and she's looking at her corner, at her coach for advice mid-fight. That's just not something I want to see, especially against somebody like Alencar. You know, you could rate her BJJ low or say she's not the best. Liam mentioned it. She's inexperienced. She's trying to figure out how to translate the BJJ game to the MMA. I think she could have a huge advantage here on the mat. So I took a stab at Alencar inside the distance instead. It was plus 400, and I think knockout is plus 2,000 on Bet Online. I took that as well because I think she could get advantageous positions on the ground. I've seen Renzo Santos go for leg locks and getting her head beaten by super low level people. And regardless, even if she fought a lot more times, yes, that is experience and that does help. But she fought nobodies and as well. I think the girl also on Contender Series was really big. Luciano. She was a large frame, huge girl. I think Alencar came in on short notice, and that's the last thing people are seeing in their mind. I actually think this is a good underdog play. She's going to be able to eat the shots of Dos Santos, and then she's going to have the advantage on the ground. I think she at least wins 2 rounds, but I like her to get the submission or find the dominant position and unleash some ground and pound here. I think she could get it done.
Very interesting. So again, it is making me tend towards that fight not to go the distance. I do want to go back and add to my document, the fight ends by KO, just because we've heard takes from both of our sharp guests on the show for how each woman can get the fight done via TKO, and I don't disagree with them. And when you look at a fight like this, it's going to be biased towards the jiu-jitsu pedigree of these two women, but sometimes that cancels each other out, right? What did we see last time out? Last week? everybody's saying it's either Wellington Turman by sub or it's Jerry Gooden by knockout. If it was all that easy, we'd all be rich, right? So sometimes you got to think a little bit more into it. You got to be a little clever. And for whatever it's worth, the two props that did show the most market value, and you got to understand something for the audience. It's not to say that this is always a way to find value, right? If you cap a fight yourself and it's value to your number, that could be another way to find value, right? But just from a market standpoint, the two numbers that I found that had value were Dos Santos by KO, 1.7% edge to the market, and a 2% edge on the Alencar sub market at plus 500. So a couple of plus EV looks out there. Whether or not they come through, I couldn't tell you, but it also supports my read on the under and the fight not to go. So probably going to end up getting some shares of that before all is said and done. But without further ado, let's move on to the next fight where we have a potentially more compelling matchup with my guy Tatsuro Tyra taking on Carlos Hernandez. And this is a fascinating fight because Carlos Hernandez is a guy out of Valley Flow Striking Academy. This isn't, a pushover gym by any means, but I also think we got to recognize, Tatsuro Tyra, he's been brought up the right way, 14-0 now as a professional. And he's dealt with a couple of, difficult circumstances, right? Somebody pulls out of the fight. They cancel it last minute. They switch the opponent. It's a last minute weight change. They got to do the weight cut again a week later. He's just had all these circumstances throughout his UFC run, dealt with it all, never showed, a willingness to quit, I feel. And that's really what I've liked from him, right? In a couple bad situations, the guillotines, a few spots where, lesser fighters would say, you know what, give me the check. I'll live to fight another day. And so what I've liked about Tyra, the excellent grappling transitions. I think his UFC run has showed off a lot of what he can do on the ground, but I think his pre-UFC run showed off a lot more of what he can do on the feet. And I do think that people sometimes underrate his striking. I think he's got good low kicks. I think he can be powerful with his hands at times. He's got big hands for the division as well. So I think that when he connects, he can land with a lot of power. And he recorded many club and subs on the regional scene on his way up. So I think that you look at the record, it's like, oh my God, this guy just submits people. But a lot of the time, he hits them, they drop down to turtle, and then he just has elite grappling, so he takes the back and the fight's over. He could do that again here, potentially, but I just think that people sometimes underrate his other skills because he's such a wizard on the mat. But last time out, Edgar Chairez, that's not a guy that you want to exchange with on the feet, right? We know that Edgar Chairez, very durable guy historically, and he throws with a lot of power. He throws with a lot of bad intention. And I felt like he gritted it out, tough fight, was able to find a way to get the win. But this time, I think he's coming to make a statement type performance here. I think that Tyra has been built up the right way. He's got the blonde hair now. I think he's trying to do that marketing gimmick. So, on most of these fights, I'm going to have my guest lead off. But on this one, I like my guy Tatsuro Tyra. I think he's getting it done once again. No 10-unit max bets here because we're up in the minus 500 range. But I tweeted it out earlier. When this guy was minus 200, it was immense value because now every fight he's minus 400 and minus 500 and he hasn't lost yet. So as far as I'm concerned, I got in while the going was good. And now I'm not going to force the plays when the market has gotten to where I was. I said he should be 80% in those fights. Now they're saying he should be more than 80% in this fight against the guy who's got on paper, better credentials in Carlos Hernandez. So still another winnable fight for Tyra, but a tough guy, a guy who's going to make him work really hard, especially the longer this fight goes. So I think Tyra, in order to win this fight cleanly, has to do it early when he's fresh, when he's at his best, because I think he's just got more skills in these positions, especially on the ground. I think he can run circles around Hernandez. So that's kind of what I'm expecting to see. But I think it's going to be a hell of a fight the longer it goes. But for me, give me Tyra, and I think he's going to win it inside the distance. We'll kick it to my brother Dravey. How do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, I know Tyra's your guy, Liam. He's a cool prospect. I know people are kind of mad on him because of his last fight. Like he got dropped and then he almost got submitted. But I think you made a good point. Like you want to see these type of prospect and fighter face adversity and see how they're gonna react to this. Because sometimes we see fighters that are like Mokaev is another example. He has gone through adversity and won fights. So that's good to see. Because sometimes they're in the top 10 and you don't know how they're going to react to adversity. I don't think it's good. So in this fight, Tyra still won the fight. He got dropped early. He found a way to win. So I think that's good for him. And he's young. So I feel like he's going to be improving from fight to fight. You mentioned his stand-up. People are taking too much into his stand-up and they're saying that his striking is bad. I don't think his striking is amazing. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think it's terrible or bad. I think he's just right in the middle. And he doesn't need to be an elite striker because he's an elite grappler. Very good on the ground, very good submission, good ground and pound also. But I was watching the lines before I was about to speak, and I got the sub at plus 170. I didn't even know, but it's minus 130 now. I was like, damn, okay. I thought it was, last time I checked, it was like plus 110 or something. And I think it's kind of crazy now, the line, minus 135, excuse me, for the sub. I think it's it's a little bit crazy now. I don't think it can be an insta sub like Nascimento did, but Hernandez is a good fighter and he's doing the right thing on the ground. He's not going to be easy to sub, but I feel like at some point Tyra grappling is going to be there and he's going to be able to find the sub. But again, might be a fight where he grind out a decision. So I only went a unit on it at plus 170, but yeah, massive line movement here, minus 135. You mentioned the KO, Liam. I don't think it's a bad look. It's plus 650 now. I favor the sub, of course, but when you have these type of number, people tend to only bet one of the prop, and then you got the other prop. I think the KO opened plus 450 or something. It's now plus 650. So the value is now on the KO. I think I will not play the sub at these odds, but the early price was very good for the sub prop considering his grappling skills.
Yeah, man. And I've kind of bounced around. I've played Tyra sub props in the past and cashed them. And I played Tyra by knockout in the past and not cashed, right? But it was around a similar price. And it was against Jesus Aguilar. I felt like he had an opportunity to go out there and dominate the fight physically. I just felt like he was the bigger fighter. And unfortunately, he did in the first round, and he did it with his grappling, right? So the one lesson I've learned over time is if I'm going to expose one way or the other, I try and get the ITD if I can shop around for a good price. So that way, if the fight finishes and my guy does it, okay, I still get paid out on that. But in addition, I could stack that with, okay, I got the plus money on the way that I think it's going to go down. So in your case, you're sitting pretty with a prop that's now going to close, probably 60% across the market, and you got it at a plus money price. I mean, that's always going to be a plus EV wager. And I think that in this case, if you said gun to your head, how does he do it? I mean, you'd have to say he preferences the sub. You just see that on tape. Even when he hurts people with his hands, he preferences the sub. But then I could also point to examples on tape where he's controlling somebody's wrist and just elbowing them over and over in the head. Different referee just stops the fight. So for me, that's something else to watch out for here is Tyra just being more aggressive with his ground and pound. Blonde hair Tyra for a reason, baby. He's coming with that aggression. Zach, how do you feel about this matchup, my man? And do you feel like there's any value to be had?
Yeah, dude, I was watching some of Tyra's fights. He actually dropped Candelario pretty bad with I believe it was a left hand. And he's got some pretty sick kicks as well too on the stand up. That's something I like out of him. Going back and watching Alto Moreno versus Hernandez. Hernandez was he was in southpaw able to land a bunch of kicks to the liver though, kicks to the body. He had Hernandez's body marked up. I think this is Tyra all the way here. I kind of do agree with the knockout. It's been a while since he's got one, but looking at Tapology, yeah, obviously the market thinks he's going to get the submission or the decision. 3% are only on the knockout. Looking at Bet MMA tips, not a single person has taken the knockout. So you got all submission or decisions, but nobody took the knockout yet. So very, very sharp call on both your guys. I think that's interesting. Like Liam said, he has ground and pound potential too as well. And man, we just seen this weekend Cody Brundage knockout via Rampage Jackson powerbomb. Like Paul Craig knocked out Jamal Hill in all technicality.
Oh, that robbed me, bro. But
yeah, exactly, and it still happened. But geez, do you guys hear that? Or it's pretty loud. All right, that's my breakdown on the fight, man. I think Tyra all the way here. I think he has the grappling advantage. I think he has the striking advantage. I think people are overreacting to his last fight. Japan all the way here. Could be a potential parlay buster early, but I think this one is safe, guys.
Fair play. So there you have it. I think that when I'm looking at this fight, I just like Tyra's game a little bit better. Don't love the money line pricing in terms of getting involved, but Do I think that it's outrageous? Not really, because I feel like Hernandez, most of the time to win this fight, he's got to get it done, via decision. And I just think that for Tyra, he's probably got more submission equity. He's probably got more KO equity. And I think he's got more decision equity as well. So it's like, that just seems to me like a hard fight for his opponent to win. Should be a fun scrap, though. Flyweight tends to be. But I'm going with Tyra, and I think he gets it done ITD. Next up, we've got a bantamweight showdown between Stephanie Egger and Luana Santos. And this is another fight where, just doing the tape before this, I'm so glad I did the tape before I got on here, because I would have felt really foolish if I hadn't, just gone back and skimmed this, because Luana Santos may have gotten that first round finish last time out. But boy, oh boy, that stand-up was something to watch. I think that she was really nervous and a little bit stiff, but she was like out there just watching Juliana Miller land some big shots in the early going, which I found a little bit surprising on the rewatch. I didn't remember that part of the fight. It's not that long a fight, so you kind of remember the highlight reel at the end. Oh wow, she's getting the finish, but you kind of forget those moments before that looked a little bit dicey, where they just got after it early. And so again, I'm kind of tilting towards violence here, but I'm curious first with my brother Dravy, how do you feel about this matchup? And do you feel like there's any value to be had?
Yeah, I like the Edgar side, especially at the earlier price. I got plus 162 on Edgar, and I also play a bit of a ITD at plus 400. I just feel like that's a market overcorrection here. Edgar was a big favorite against the Russian Ronda. She got meme knee bar. It is what it is. It's woman MMA. That's gonna happen sometimes, And then Santos beat Miller, who's not UFC caliber whatsoever, and she got a KO. So now Edgar's the dog in this fight, which I don't agree with the odds. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned it right on point, because at first when I saw this matchup before tapes, I was like, I'm not betting this fight. That's a mess. I'm not interested. And I was remembering the Santos versus Miller fight, that she just beat her up bad and a big KO, and that's why you need to watch tapes and refresh your memory, right? And then yeah, that was a swing fest. I don't think she looks good in this fight. Miller had her moments on the feet, which is not a good sign. Also to remember, Miller had a terrible weight cut. She looked like the ghost on the scale. Maybe she was not all there. She got also injured in this fight. I don't know which part exactly, but she got injured in the fight. So yeah, I don't think it was a good look for Santos. And then the fight that really sold me, I know it was a long time ago, but the fight versus Bishop, right? Bishop's a kind of big girl for the division, and she was able to get her back, control her for a long period of time, getting the takedowns kind of easily. And yeah, when she was getting the takedown, it was the round. And Santos has shown good submission defense, but I've seen her in bad spot on the ground. So that's a worry for me here. And also, bro, she's moving up in weight at 135. Edgar is proven at 135. She's a big girl for the division. Santos is a 125er, and now she's moving up. And now she's missing weight. Like, what is going on? The last time this happened recently was Ray Cooper in PFL. It didn't end well. He was not serious, maybe injured, not in shape. I don't know why she's moving up, first of all. And then she's missing weight. So is there an injury? Is there something we don't know? Because that was like 3 pounds, I think. So that's a very big red flag for me here. But yeah, matchup wise, I feel like it's going to be close on the feet. Santos the better striker, I'll say, but I feel like Edgar's going to make it competitive on the feet. And yeah, on the ground, I think they can both get on top. But I think Edgar is more dangerous with her submission. So yeah, plus 162 was an easy bet for me after tapes. And yeah, I think she's live for a finish.
Yeah, this was another fight, man. Like I said, where I just was like, do I really want to steer into volatility and pick a side here? When, like you said, last time out, Irina Alexieva, not a girl I particularly rate, a girl that Melissa Dixon put through the absolute ringer her very next fight, was
I
able
bet
to go out there and
Dixon
get that
in
fight.
this spot at plus money,
Great
I think.
job.
Yeah,
Great job, man. That's a
the
very
Russian
sharp bet.
Ronda, bro. The fade was there.
Yeah, she came and she went, right? She burst onto the scene like a star, and then she was a 15-minute flash in the pan. But in any case, just looking at the Tapology votes here, it would endorse the fact that the Santos side is very popular, whereas the Edgar side maybe not getting as much love this week. I do think it's a curious matchup because Edgar is a big physical girl. One thing I noted, I listened back to my first look because I have to do the timestamps, right? I hate doing it, but it's just the way it is. And so when I'm listening back, I did note, I think that Edgar is the better grappler in this matchup. And like, you have a bigger girl who's the better grappler in WMMA at plus money. Like, that is like a system bet for me, right? So I haven't gotten to the window. I didn't bet it, but like, just long term, that is something I normally look to bet. I'm like, if she's bigger, if she's got the grappling edge, she should win. And when you look back, is Jenna Bishop like the world's most sophisticated striker? I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but like a lot of it was just I'm throwing left hands down the middle, walking you down and coming forward. Like, it was a good game plan. It worked very well, right? She was landing a lot of shots in that fight, and busted up her face a little bit, had her backing up. So if you listen back to the commentary on that last fight, they noted, like, she said to Daniel Cormier that morning, I was so nervous. And she looked nervous out there. She looked, kind of like a deer in the headlights, hands up. Now, granted, it's at the Apex, right? If this was in Austin or something, everybody's yelling on the way out. It would probably be an even bigger fade spot. But it's just like, I do have some, second guessing that I'm doing here, because I had put Santos finish props, the ends by KO, the ends by sub, the fight not to go the distance, and the under 2.5 in my document this week. And the things that were showing value, I must say, were the Santos props, at least in the market. I was able to find a couple of way off market props, didn't bet them, because I just had a weird gut feeling about this fight. And I wanted to see how I think the judo is going to play out. It's rare you have two judokas taking each other on. So curious to know what my guy Zach thinks about this one, an in-depth grappling background. So what do you think about this matchup between two judokas?
Yeah, very interesting because you think it would cancel out, but that's not necessarily always the case, right? Especially with the more physical, better grappler, I think, in Edgar. I think she could get the fight to the ground. I think that knee bar was kind of a flash submission. She got scared, she tapped, but that does also show if she gets into trouble, she could, just say, I'm out of here. And I do see some people taking the Rayando Santos KO. Not Rayando Santos, Luana Santos KO. Kind of similar names, right? People liking the violence here, but overall, I just think this is a very volatile women's MMA fight. Luana Santos does have the age advantage here. Edgar, lost her last fight, so people are a little low on her, you would think. As you said, most of the Tapology votes are Luana Santos. But the line doesn't really indicate that. It's kind of close, so I'm not necessarily sure. I don't have a great read on this fight whatsoever, man. I'll be 100% honest with you. I don't like Edgar's striking. She seems very stiff, very rigid. Give me the younger fighter here. I'll just take the younger fighter. I think with the age gap, I don't want to sound too much like Yanni the Greek. I don't have a great read on this fight. So just give me the younger fighter. She's got a 10-year gap. Those win 72% of the time. And that's why I'll go with Luana Santos.
Yeah, I don't even feel like super comfortable giving a final prediction here. I guess what I'll have to say is the more that we discuss this, the more I could see this being a potential early buster on the card. Now, granted, I think the marketability is way more there on the Santos side, but you guys pointed to a lot of the things that are nerve-wracking here. The missing of weight, not something that you love to see, right? Especially when somebody's moving up a weight class. That's kind of a very strange outcome. But that could have been something, I think I read something earlier today that it wasn't a huge fine. It could have been some women's particular issues that impeded her ability to make the weight. But in any case, at 23 years of age, only 7 fights under her belt, this is still a pretty tricky fight, right? Just because her striking last time out looked pretty stiff and awkward, right? So it's not to say that it's not going to be better than Edgar. And I do think the longer the fight goes, the more that Edgar has a potential to just slow down and kind of like fold up shop a little bit over the course of 15. But I think in the early going, like Edgar has had some spots in the past. I bet her ITD against Shanna Young, right? And like that was another spot where she just kind of bullied her, used her size, used her physicality. So that for me is what makes this a tricky fight, because how many times have we seen in WMMA, it comes down to like who gets the takedown, right? You end up on top, you look great, right? You don't. Sometimes you could look like the bug against the windshield. I think of Yan Xiaonan on her win streak. She looks great, right? She actually had, going into the Carla Esparza fight, the lowest time in the history of the division being held down on the ground. And then she got held down for the entire duration of the fight and beaten to a bloody pulp in 7 minutes. So styles make matchups. That's the bottom line here. And I think I'm going to steer towards not picking a side and either going with the ends KO, the fight doesn't go the distance, some way to get involved in violence here. Shout out to our guy YBB, who says, did you guys talk about how Song Yadong gets his second career submission win in the UFC against Gutierrez this weekend yet? No, we have not, brother. We are still on the preliminary portion of the card, but excited to talk about that matchup when we get there. So thank you for joining us, YBB, a very sharp friend of the show. Now back to the action, guys. Steve Garcia is taking on Milk Costa at 155 pounds. My guy, Zach, why don't you start us off on this breakdown, brother?
Yeah, I see a lot of love for Costa here. I think, man, Garcia, he would have to get to him first before he'd have to make this a really dirty fight, in my opinion. And that's what Steve Garcia is coming to do every time. You're going to get a very violent fight. So in that case, I think the under 1.5 here could be a good play, man. I don't usually look to take under 1.5s. But I think Garcia could crack him potentially. Costa likes to pull back. He's very good at finding the exact range to pull back and counter. But I still think it's possible with the 4-ounce gloves that Steve Garcia clips him. And at the end of the day, I think it's set at 1.5 for a reason. If Garcia's durability holds up, yeah, it's possible. I think Costa knows he needs a finish here. Doesn't necessarily need a finish here, but I think he's looking to get a highlight win, and I think he's going to look to get it early. And if he wastes too much energy, he'll slow down a little bit. But I'd like to take the under 1.5 here rather than the fight goes the distance or Costa. I'm just going to go with violence in this because the fight goes the distance, no, is minus 260. So they're saying this fight does not go the distance, most likely, right? I think it ends in the 7-minute mark. I honestly do. 7.5, right? I got 7.5 minutes of these two guys fighting. I think it either ends via Costa sub, Costa knockout, or Steve Garcia could possibly get the knockout as well. I do like Costa's kicking game as well. I could see that's something Steve Garcia could have trouble dealing with. Ontiveros was able to get a few kicks in their fight, rocked him, had him on skates, crazy. We've seen Garcia time and time again have a suspect chin. I think this is a good spot for Costa here. I don't think he's going to be the parlay buster, but if he does mess up here, it's going to be a knockout on the other side. So I'm going with the under 1.5. Haven't placed a bet on it yet because I normally don't go with the straight totals all the time. But I really like the spot, man. I think this is going to be a violent spot for sure.
Well, you know what's funny, man? You just hit on virtually everything that is in my document. And this is one of the only fights on the board. I have to run the numbers on the 1.5. When you deal with some numbers that are plus money and some that are chalk, it can be difficult to run the numbers. So I have to convert them all to percentages. But in any case, I'll save you guys the boring math nerd talk. The bottom line is there showed to be an edge on Garcia KO, Costa KO, Costa sub, and the fight not to go the distance. I know it's chalky, but there was a couple books that were hanging like a minus 220 when the market average was suggesting it should be in the minus 250 or higher range. So again, these are, I'm not suggesting that you take all these bets, but what I'm saying is when I start breaking down my thoughts, I then start checking, is the math going to back me up here? Am I betting into a hole or am I betting into an edge? And there's a chance of betting into an edge on this fight all over the place. But what is my hesitation? If you guys are longtime viewers of the show, I hope that you guys are yelling out right now. It's a rebooked fight. And we know that rebooked fights, the bookmaker has a lot sharper information. They've seen where the sharps are going to come in and bet it. They have a lot more to work with. And so finding your edge can be a lot more difficult. And I do think that some of the sharp houses are shielding themselves from things like a Costa sub that took a lot of money last time. But the domestic books, they respond to, their clientele. So sometimes you can find some opportunities in the market that way. Dravy, how do you feel about this fight, my man? It's a volatile one. It's not one that I feel extremely bullish about because like I said, I don't really like betting into these rebooked matchups. I feel like they're among the most volatile, especially now we've moved weight classes, in fact, from 145 to 155. So what are your thoughts on this one?
You want to know what's great, Liam? I had a bet on Costa before it got canceled at minus 175, a big bet, right? And normally when they're just pups on the fight, the bet got refund. I think that's what it happened for most people. But on Bet365, look at this. I don't know if you can see. but I still have the number on him instead Pup Stone it. So I'm very happy that I still have it, but unfortunately I can't track the bet. So it is what it is. But I play the fight another way that I like. I play Costa KO plus 235. Again, it's plus 110, bro. I was looking at the odds before I was speaking. I'm like, dude, I have not watched the odds for like 2 days. My bet were locked in a couple of days ago. Plus 110 is kind of wide now, but Garcia chin is a big worry here. Costa is way more durable, and I think he's going to have a speed advantage also. His kicks will be a problem. But the fight doesn't go. Again, the earlier price was better. I got minus 200 to win a unit, and then I place a unit on Costa KO plus 235. So if Garcia catch him or Costa win by sub, I'm just gonna break even track. And if Costa win by KO, I'm gonna profit like a 3.35 units. So I think that's a good way to play it. This fight is not going the distance. I don't think so. It's probably gonna be under 1.5. Like Zach said, I think it's a good look when you have a finish and when you have a fight that's gonna finish more often than not and it goes under 1.5. So more often than not, I prefer to bet the under 1.5. But in this case, at minus 200, I feel like I had a hedge over the bookies. So I play that to win a unit. I play the KO for Costa, and yeah, I feel like Garcia's life to catch him. Costa is kind of cocky, right? He's training with Bree 2. You want to bang. I think that's going to be a scrap. And I don't really see him shooting takedowns here. I don't really see Garcia shooting takedown. I think they're going to just swing and bang. And guess what? Costa's more durable. And I think that's going to be that's going to be the story of the fight. I bet Garcia in his last fight, like plus 160, he almost died in the first round. He made me sweat, and then he killed the guy. That was insane. And I'm also undefeated so far on Costa fight. I bet Moises by sub, and then I bet him against Lingo. He looks amazing against Lingo. And Lingo's a dog, and Garcia is not as durable as Lingo, but dude, these kicks in the body, in the face, he was looking crisp, man. So this fight at 155 now, I think it's probably going to favor Garcia a little bit. I heard that he was the one pulling out, maybe having trouble making weight. I'm not sure. But yeah, he has a tough weight cut and he has durability issues. So I guess the fight being at 155 kind of favor him. And Costa is like minus 250 now. I don't think he's a good play on the money line. With these odds at the moment, I feel like the better play is probably the under 1.5, like Zach just talked about, or Garcia KO at plus 450. I think it's a good look. So yeah, it's all about numbers, guys. I can go out there and tell you I think Costa's gonna kill him and all that and be super confident. But at the end of the day, like the plus 235 was good for the KO, the plus 110 is not. So now I think the under 1.5 is the better bet. And Garcia KO plus 450, he has big power, man, and they're gonna swing and bang. That's small gloves, anything can happen. That's MMA, right? We know the story.
Hey, bro, you said you bet Costa KO at plus 235. What is it now?
Plus 110.
That's a certified market mover right there, folks.
Certified. I absolutely love it. Good stuff, gentlemen. And when I'm looking at this fight, I'm just not going to overthink it because when I had my pick last time, I went with Costa by sub in the first 2 rounds, and that's what I feel again. And the reason I picked the sub here is I've seen a little bit of the blueprint of what happens when Steve Garcia gets hurt, right? Unless he goes face down, just in a bundle, then what happens is he's going to try and shoot. Right against Charlie Ontiveros, he gets hit with an axe kick, and he is literally in all directions. I had money on him in parlays, ITD, KO, because Charlie Ontiveros is a role player. Shout out John Martian for that one. But when I'm looking, I'm just like thinking to myself, like Steve Garcia, fun fighter, scrapper, power in both hands. He could definitely win by knockout. That's why I don't hate your guys' look on the under. When I'm looking at Steve, though, I do worry about his chin just from a long-term perspective because Charlie was able to clip him, and then Charlie just had no takedown defense, no ground game. So he was able to take it to the ground easily. I feel like Costa, on the other hand, would just make him pay if he does that while he's rocked. I always talk about, yeah, maybe he can't get the sub if they're both sober, but like you rock him, he's drunk now trying to grab a hold of you, then it becomes a lot easier to submit somebody. So I think Costa could be opportunistic with a back take if he hurts Steve in this fight. But overall, does seem like a really volatile matchup to me. So tends towards some violence, but the price is pretty chalked out now. So market's gotten sharp to this fight. We can move along to the next one, folks, where we will see Hyun Sung Park taking on Shannon Ross. And I know my guy Zach has some thoughts about this fight, so we'll throw it to him first, brother.
Yeah, man, I think this is a fade purely on just Hyun Sung Park here, man. I think somebody's going to have to ruin the parlays, and I think this is the best option just due to the fact that he's super green in MMA. I actually think going back and looking at his record, so we're going to start here with this guy's fought in some just sketchy promotions, I want to say. It's called Double G, and I went and watched 2 of his fights, I think, versus Dayun Hoon Seo and I think it was Kim Hoo Seon, the 0-0 opponents. I think all these fights were just fixed fights, bro. 100%. I'm not trying to, like, I might sound racist, but China has a history of fixing fights. Like, it's not even, like, far-fetched that's a possibility. So up to then, what did he have any real experience in the UFC? Like, he was fighting tomato cans, and I just don't know, man. I think Ross could look better than his price tag shows. And people are just assuming it's going to be a round 1 knockout. I think it could be a submission. I don't think it's going to be a knockout. I just don't see the power coming from this dude Park. I haven't seen him rock anybody. Everything's coming on the ground. He did hit that knee on Ju Hwan Kim, but like I said, I don't even know if these fights are real, man. Like, I'm 100% actually convinced they're not. Jeremiah Saragar, though, that was a real fight. That dude was small. I don't think he's won a fight since. I'll go and look. 7-5 now. After he's lost by Americana to an 11-4 opponent, and a unanimous decision to a 10-5. So it's safe to say that guy's not that good. I know Shannon Ross isn't good either, but we're talking about big price tag here, right? Plus 500. He's got to win 20% of the time. Finesse the books, my guy. What's good? Top Noi Kiram, they were saying that guy was smoking cigarettes like after the fight. They sparred with each other, and he was actually piecing him up. But the guy has no ground game. I actually go and look at his record. He's probably been submitted after that. No, he's been to 2 split decisions, so I'm assuming he got grappled in those. Because the guy had some decent stand-up. Then once he was on the ground, he was an absolute fish. Where I've seen even this guy make mistakes on the ground. Sunguk Choi actually looked really good against him. Made some mistakes in the 3rd round, wound up giving up his back, and I think that's how Ross loses this fight, is by submission. I don't think it's by knockout. I think if it's a knockout, I think it's a little bit later in the fight. Sort of like maybe just accumulation of blows, him giving up more so than a clean knockout. Aguilar, yeah, it wasn't a power puncher, but go back and just, like, I remember, like, the market on that fight, it was 50-50. I actually know a lot of people that were on Ross, and now it's a ghost town. Nobody's on Ross. What happened? It's because he got knocked out. He's been knocked out, dropped in all of his last fights. People are starting to get the drill, but I think this is a winnable fight for him here. Skill-wise, Shannon Ross, right? What was the last fight you could watch? I watched the fight with Ashkan Mokhtaran, and he was getting taken down a ton in that fight. Grappled, controlled. So I think that's a path for Hyun Sung Park. I went and listened to some Hyun Sung Park interviews, and this guy's talking about, I want to show off all my skills. When he says all of his skills, he said his grappling. I think this could go over a flyweight fight. But, Shannon Ross before the UFC, he's been, the fights he's lost, other than Steve Erceg, where he got rocked and then submitted. I think if he gets finished, it's going to be by submission. If not, it could go the distance. I think this fight goes the distance. I think this is going to be a back-and-forth matchup. Hyun Sung Park is super low volume. He looks shook on the ground. I think he's improving, but what gym does he train at? It's a no-name gym out of Korea, not China. So, yeah, give me Shannon Ross here, man. The first Aussie on the card. I think he gets his first UFC win, and this is going to be my last chance to bet him. Hopefully not my last chance to fade him.
Oh, my. Oh, my. All right, so there you have it. A Shannon Ross take on the show. Who would have thought we'd see the day? Dravy, how do you feel about this one, my brother? Are you seconding Shannon Ross, or are you looking at the Park side?
No, I mean, it's the problem is very just Ross chin. I mean, if you didn't have a bad chin like that, you would have been this side easily. But you mentioned Zach, like Aguilar has no KO on his resume. He's not a good striker. He probably has the smallest reach in the division, and I don't remember seeing him dropping people in tapes. At least top of my head. And he just knocked him out with a punch like in the first minute or so. That was, to me, I feel like, I mean, Russ is 34. He's fighting at flyweight. He's cutting weight and back to back to back KO lost. I don't think it's gonna get any better, man. And yeah, maybe it can get extended, but I feel at some point maybe he's gonna look good, but then he's gonna just die. I feel like it's what how it's gonna end. It's tricky to pick the KO or the sub, though. I think you mentioned a good point. Can be a sub, can be a KO. But yeah, I don't think Russ is that bad of a fighter. I mean, he has some skills. To be honest, I was watching his tapes on the regional, and I don't think he's a bad fighter. He just can't take this shot. And if you can take the shot, I mean, unless you're Charles Oliveira and you can just get back up and submit the guy, I mean, you're not gonna. I mean, at flyweight, I don't think we have seen this recently, but having that bad of a chin at flyweight, he's now 34. I mean, yeah, Park is not that good of a fighter, though. I hope he get a big highlight finish here. Not for your money, but I mean, he's gonna be a fade soon. So if he win impressively, I feel like he's gonna get price. He's gonna get a big price tag in his next fight. That's where we're gonna take advantage. I think the ITD is the play here, but yeah, it's just a little bit ugly. Like I said, he's not that good, but I can trust Russ' durability. They give you plus 500 though, and he has some skills. And if he doesn't die, I think that's gonna be probably competitive. So
Yeah, I feel like the problem for me is the unknowns here. Like what do I really know about this guy that's a minus 600? Like I don't feel like I know a lot about him. But here's my other problem, right? What do I know about Shannon Ross? What have I been saying about Shannon Ross on this show? He has maybe the worst chin in the history of professional MMA. I'm not trying to be rude. Like, I'm just trying to call it the way I see it. Like, because he's not that bad. Dravey mentioned it, right? But why do the results look the way they do? Because every time he takes a clean punch to the face, he starts time traveling. And it's not to say that he can't win this fight, right? Because here's one theoretical edge for Shannon Ross, which I know will sound crazy. What if he's just a better grappler? Because like we don't really know exactly how Park's grappling really compares to, Shannon Ross. Like Shannon Ross, I feel like his grappling is somewhat of an unknown. Does he have a lot of submission wins? Does he have a lot of things that would give you bullish confidence? No. But does he also have the, many losses in a row to give him the, old push in the rear to, hey, maybe I should just try and take these guys down and not exchange heavy blows on the feet every fight? Because the other thing is he does land in almost every fight that he has. He's out there landing a couple big shots. Obviously, Jesus Aguilar didn't land anything in that one. And I will never be more mad than I was at myself that day for not betting the KO prop at plus 900. I talked about it all week. It looked me in my eyes all week. And then I kept talking myself out of it. I was like, it's flyweight. It's Jesus Aguilar. If he hurts him, he's going to go for the guillotine. And then he literally punched the guy into a corpse. And I was like, wow, unbelievable. So for me, I think that there's a chance that maybe this fight gets extended or whatever, but I just can't bet on the chin of Shannon Ross. That's my big problem. So I like the violence here. I think if Shannon Ross wins the fight, it could be a stunner. It could be he goes out here and just knocks this guy out. I mean, when you watch Shannon Ross fight, he fights like he's got like 5 minutes to live, right? He's like out there in the pocket, biting down, throwing overhand lefts, and like trying to take people out. I just don't think many people respect his power. And I think that they're willing to take one to give one, and he can't take one. So that has been his demise so far. But to your point, you got a guy who's relatively inexperienced fighting now a guy who's got way more professional experience, who's a little bit more of that elder statesman, more UFC experience as well. So I fully expect that at some point Shannon Ross is getting completely memed in this fight. But I also just have to acknowledge the fact that that's an unknown, and I do think that there is some volatility here. And a lot of people are giving you some grief in the comments, but I just want to say, Zach, this is how you find an edge, right? It's like, if you're just agreeing with everybody all the time, good luck making money out there. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I'm just saying, if you find yourself in constant, rigorous agreement with the community on every bet, check the MMA at the end of the year and just be like, am I doing, because it's very hard to win like that. It's not impossible. It's very hard to win betting just with the public. So finding your own edge, finding your ways to spot value. Most of the big bets I've ever won are the ones that everybody are in my comment section. You're crazy. What an idiot. I can't believe you're on this. Hey, somebody's got to win. Somebody's got to lose on some of these. And if everybody's bullish and confident, then you got to go to the window with a guy that I think is a little bit unknown still to the general public, myself included. I'm pretty in-depth in the fight game, and this guy feels like a virtual unknown to me. So wanted to just shout out our guy, MMA Ricky says, love the cast we got today. That's a good recipe for sharp action. Hit the thumbs up. You know that's all that we need, is that little bit of support. Did you have something you wanted to add, JV?
Yeah, could I, him. I was going to shout out somebody in the comment too. Nate Brown put fight to start round 2. That's something he was thinking. I think that's solid, bro. I think everybody thinks it's going to end early. I think the interview that I listened to is the real key to this fight. This man, Hyan Sung Park, literally said, I want to wrestle. I want to show my wrestling. So somebody else also in the comments said Ross could initiate the wrestling. I think it's going to be a grapple fest, and people are going to be like, what the fuck? Why is my under burning? Why is my under ticket burning? And yeah, that's what's going to happen here. I can't guarantee you Shannon Ross is going to win, but I think it's going to be a very interesting fight.
You don't need to be confident. Like at plus 500, I mean, people are gonna judge you and give you all the shit. But at the end of the day, if you cash the ticket, what are they gonna say? You know. So respect for backing him. I don't think I've seen anyone on Rush this week. So if you cash him, you're gonna be on an island at these odds. So
yeah, I think the comments are being pretty respectful for the most part. So I'm cool with it, man.
Yeah, and I've cashed a Dean Barry. I've cashed ridiculous bets that you don't even deserve, right? It's like, this is MMA. This is a crazy sport. So this guy could go out there and get DQ'd. He could eye poke him, kick him in the nuts 3 times, and you're like, what just happened? Like, how did I lose on this? But you don't really know anything about this guy. So for me, I'd like a bigger sample size for the minus 600 price. But with that being said, we can move along to the next fight, where hopefully we have a little bit more data points here to back one fighter or the other. We got Kenan Song taking on Kevin Jette, and Kenan Song been around the UFC for a long time, right? He's been there since the last UFC Shanghai. They were trying to bookend him, right? Bring him to one, bring him to the next. And unfortunately, the card gets moved back to the Apex Center. But Song Kenan in this spot is going to be taking on a Kevin Jette representing City Kickboxing. And last time out, Kevin Jette got the win in his UFC debut, was able to submit Kiefer Crosby after a little bit of adversity in that first round. They kind of just had a little bit of a barnyard brawl, and ultimately the skills difference paid the bills for Kevin Jette in that spot. But he's got way less professional experience. He's also the less experienced UFC fighter, but he's much younger. He's the much bigger guy as well in this spot. And you look back, Kenan Song last time out looked great against Rolando Bedoya, but Bedoya a little bit smaller as an individual in the weight class. And I'm looking at this matchup, and I'm just saying to myself, man, the size could be a factor here for Jette, who's a pretty big guy. And I just think that the ground game is once again something of an unknown for Kenan Song. He's got a flashy 9-0 record career to the submission, but we haven't seen much of it at the UFC level where it matters most. And I do think that that's a potential liability. Most of the time, you see him getting matched up with strikers, right? They have him with this guy from City Kickboxing, and they're probably looking at that record saying, man, only 1 win by sub. You know, last time out, it's a little bit anomalous, but you go back and watch some of those fights, he is willing to go out there and pursue takedowns, try and get on top. But I think he's a little stiff and awkward on the feet. And I think Song Kenan, you know, he can slow down a little bit over the course of his fights. I thought he gave Ian Gary an honest run in the early going. He's got that power on his hook, but he didn't have that much volume to offer. And he did start to slow down a little bit over the course of that fight. That's what allowed Gary to get the finish there. And frankly, if Ian Gary decided, he was hopping on the back and just taking the neck right there, but he's like standing over him, throwing the awkward, like short arm hooks to the side of his head because he wanted that TKO. I think in this fight, both methods of finish are live for both guys. It just seems like that kind of fight to me. So I'm leaning towards the fight not to go the distance once again in this spot, and probably towards the Jette side, but only ever so slightly. I do think they were trying to set up Song Kenan with a winnable fight, but I just think not every winnable fight goes the way that they're hoping. And I do think Jette might just have an ability to get this fight to the ground that people aren't expecting. So, the ends by sub is a huge price in this fight as well. I'm not sure why based on the last fight, but I also think that Nate makes a good point here. Kiefer, career lightweight, flunked out of Bellator. I'm not saying it's a great win that I rate super high, but also you look at the losses. Jack Della Maddalena, not really going to hold that one too much against you either. So Jette seems like a guy who could be on the up and up, still a young guy putting together that experience. Dravey, how do you feel about this fight? Any worthwhile?
Yeah, I like this fight, man. I like Song in this matchup, but I feel like I have a good read on Jette. I was on him in his debut. People didn't want to bet him in this spot. He was fighting a bum, in my opinion. Sorry, but the guy what he was fighting is not UFC caliber whatsoever. But there's a couple of things to mention about Jette. I'm not sure people know that, but he's a judo black belt, and he has very good cardio. I've listened to some interviews about city kickboxing talking about him. I've seen clip of him running with people from city kickboxing, and he's the last guy on the run, on the circle. Like, he's the last guy running. So he has very good cardio, and he has very good chin. So that's some points to mention. But at the same time, if I know you have a very good chin on regional, is that really a good sign, So I'm not sure, but he can take a good punch. But my other point is he's very edible. I think he has good jab, good leg kicks, good takedowns. He doesn't have good top control, though. That's my concern here. He has good wrestling offense, but not good top control. And I mean, Song fought good competition compared to him. That's a big step up in competition for Jette. Like, he's fighting a guy that is not UFC caliber to a guy with a lot of UFC experience against. Like, Song fought Izzy, Brad Riddell, Yan Gary, Max Griffin, all these guys. And I mean, he got killed by Griffin and by Gary at the end, but he dropped Gary. And I feel like Gary and Jette has kind of a similar frame, the way they fight. And he was doing good in this fight, to be honest. He kind of gassed at the end of the third round. He didn't get a finish. Maybe he got, maybe mentally kind of broke. But Jette is low volume. I'm not sure he's going to have success with wrestling here. That's my concern. I think more often than not, that's going to be a striking match. He has good leg kicks, like I said, but I love the way Song check leg kicks, and Song hit harder, and his chin's worry at time, but I don't think he has a bad chin. If you look the guy that he has been KO or lost to, that's high level competition. So to me, Song is taking a step down in competition, and Jette is taking a massive step up in competition. And he's still unknown, unproven in the UFC. So Song has been there, done that. I feel like has more power. And yeah, you gave me a guy like him with, I'll say, big power against a guy in Jette that is very hittable. I mean, Song had trouble with his wrestling defense before, but I feel like it kind of improved from fight to fight in his career. And yeah, more often than not, this fight's going to be competitive. And if it go the distance, I think yes, can all agree that Song's going to win at least one round. If it go the distance, do you guys think it's possible that Jette win like a 30-27 domination? I don't really think so.
I don't think it's highly likely, but it, like I said, I kind of feel like this fight's going to finish. So I don't see either person winning a dominant decision.
That's fair. Yeah, he can definitely finish. I mean, I think Song's live for KO and his chin is worry at time, but I did take the Song side at plus 135 for a unit. But my principal bet is the Song plus 3.5, only minus 130. I didn't get this line. Like I said, I prefer to cover myself in this scenario because I think it can go over. I think it can go the distance. And if it does, I mean, I think Song win, but if he lose, he's going to lose a close decision. So yeah, plus 3.5 for Song. Song money line. Kind of big position for me this week. I like him in this spot. And I bet Jette in his last spot, so I know him. I'm not only fitting him, but again, you're a pick him against a guy making his debut with no data, nothing, and then you're a medium-sized favorite against a guy that you're taking a big step up in competition. again, the market, I think Sung should be a slight favorite here.
There you go. And according to my numbers, I am showing some value on the Kanan KO prop as well as the Jette KO and the Jette sub prop. So again, that was some further validation I felt like for the violence that I was looking at. But in all fairness, it's a volatile ass matchup. It's one guy that we don't know as much about. What we do know is mostly from the regional scene. And like you said, what could have been a regional level fight against Kiefer Crosby. So in all likelihood, there's some inherent volatility in this matchup. There's some known unknowns. So it does make it a little bit harder for me to cap personally. Zach, how do you feel about this matchup, my brother? What are you thinking here?
Yeah, bro. I think, I think if Jette wants success here, he's going to have to keep this at range. He's going to have to kick the legs. I think we all know that. You think that there's going to be some grappling mixed in here. I think this is going to be honestly, personally, I think this is going to be looking like a glory kickboxing match. Two strikers, two guys that like to bang. Who has the better chin? It's Jette, right? So at the end of the day, I got to trust his chin a little bit more. But like my man Dravey said, the level of competition, I give the song by far, in my opinion. And I don't think his chin's terrible, right? We saw the 2 knockout loss, but he went out against Bedoya the last time out, was able to go up against him. Everybody thought he was going to lose there. Man, I think I'm going to fade Jette here. I'm going to go with Song Kanan, but only for a half unit, though. I'm going to bet him here. And if Jette goes up against another experienced guy his next time out, I'll probably go with him. Because if he wins this fight, I think it's going to be a finish. Big finish. People are going to be high on him again. We'll get some outrageous price tag. But I'm just not a believer in this guy's skills. I need to see it against a high level of competition. If he goes out and gets the win against Song here, I'll be happy. I'll say, all right, Jette, you're kind of legitimate. But I'm still skeptical. If he comes up to that big favorite the next fight out, I don't know how I'm going to be thinking about it. But in this matchup, I don't want to miss the opportunity to fade. So I think this is a 50-50 matchup at best. I'll take the value on Kanan Song. I know that's a little bit of a square breakdown, but I think this is just a striking matchup. And at the end of the day, Jette is hittable. I saw in the Kit Campbell fight, he was getting rocked. He got dropped, I think, in the first round as well. It's not out of round that Song Kanan could crack him because he does hit hard. So, not my strongest read on the card. I see some people taking the plus 3.5 on Song Kanan. He could get finished at the end of the day, so I think you just take the plus money at plus 136 in case you do get screwed on the scorecards.
Well, I think you guys made a ton of great points to back up the Song Kanan side. The only two little caveats that I would give, or like little addendums, notes at the end to add on here, is the concerns I had was Brad Riddell, a little bit on the smaller side to be getting the knockout win over him. So he is a high level striker. There's no doubt about that. But he is a 155-pounder career-wise. And then on the other hand, Rolando Bedoya, Callan Potter, Derek Krantz, Hector Aldana, Bobby Nash. Yes, they are UFC wins, but are they really that much better than Kiefer Crosby? I mean, yes, they're better, but it's a question of degree in my view, not a question of kind. So he's lost to good guys and looked good in the process at times, but we also got to keep it in perspective where he hasn't always fought the best guys, and that's how he's gotten some wins in the organization under his belt. So all love to our guy, Song Kanan. A guy I've bet on in the past. I picked him outright against Rolando Bedoya for my article last time as well. So this is one I might touch up on tape one last time before I make my final article prediction for Roto Grinders. But right now, let's make it a squad ride on the Song Kanan side. But either way, I just feel like this fight's going to end inside the distance. Like I said from the jump, that's my more bullish take on this fight. Just because I feel like Jette is a little bit stiff and awkward on the feet, but I feel like both these guys' ground game is unknown. And last time when it started to get dicey on the feet, he took it to the ground. I know that that was a decision by his opponent, but I still feel like he was able to leverage his skills on the ground because of his size. And in my view, that's the only thing that he has going for him super clearly here as well, is the fact that he's got big size. And I think he could potentially leverage that if it goes to the mat. But in any case, we can move to this next fight here where we have the main card kicking off with Andre Sergipano Muniz taking on Jun Young Park, the Iron Turtle. What a fantastic matchup in the middleweight division where Sergipano is looking to bounce back. He's off of 2 straight losses. And the Iron Turtle, on the other hand, Jin Young Park, is on a 4-fight win streak. So big matchup in the middleweight division, a lot of implications here. And I just poked some holes, I felt, in the win streak or the wins of Song Kanan overall. It's not to say that he hasn't gotten the wins or he hasn't earned them. It's just to say maybe the quality of competition is a little lower than some other guys have to fight in the UFC in their run. You look at Jin Young Park, Albert Duraev, a guy that's kind of flamed out. And honestly, I overrated his abilities. He came in as a former 2-weight world champion from ACB, but I feel like the lack of steroids, the lack of enthusiasm has really held him back in his UFC run, and he's gotten a little bit older. So we just haven't gotten the best, in my view, of Albert Duraev from what he showed on tape in the Russian regionals. And even then, he had been knocked out many times. Dennis Talulian, he can hardly buy a win in the UFC right now. Joseph Holmes, a guy who's a little bit physically underdeveloped, I feel like, for this weight class. Eric Anders, a guy who gave Jin Young Park a ton of problems, and I bet Jin Young Park minus 200 in that spot. Very bullish. And this is where I have some hesitation in this fight, because these are guys that had a common opponent in Eric Anders. And you look at how Andre Muniz handled him there. Blast double leg, takes him to the ground, physically manhandles him, and then gets the submission. Only man to ever submit Eric Anders in professional MMA. Jin Young Park, on the other hand, is a cardio monster. So this is a tale of two fights in my view, right? The first 7.5 minutes, I feel like Andre Muniz could represent real problems. I did say this on first look, and then I went back to watch the tape to confirm. And I do feel like I see a ability from Andre Muniz to keep this fight somewhat competitive, especially early on. He's big, he's strong, he's physical, and he can grapple. So in the early going, a lot of the leverage that Jin Young Park likes to exert over his opponents is his cardio advantage, which I think he will retain here, but also his grappling advantage. He likes to take us to the mat. He likes to hold him down. He likes to make him work. He likes to make him build back up. And we've seen in the past guys that are able to stifle that part of his offense. Gregory Rodriguez, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, they're able to make him work himself. They're able to put some damage on him and make him have, you know, more adversity to fight through. Whereas when he can just bear down on you, he can break people very easily. So I think that there is a clear path to victory for Jin Young Park in this spot, but he's going to be the smaller fighter. I do not think he's going to have an advantage on the ground while both men are fresh for the first 5 to 7 minutes. So what I'm looking at here is a, you know, adjusted money line that I think is probably accurate. I don't think that, you know, it's a massive value on Muniz. However, I think there's a path to Muniz looking like a massive hindsight favorite. So for that reason, I do think he is a live underdog. And when I'm looking at a fight like this, I say to myself, are there optimal ways to play it? And I think there could be potential ways to get involved on the prop market. I'm not going to talk about all my positions, but I'm just looking at a guy like Andre Muniz and saying to myself, you know, he's not a bum to me. I always thought he was very good. And I've never lost a bet on Andre Muniz, right? The only bet I've ever lost on Andre Muniz, that you guys might laugh at this, I bet $2.50 on a 3-leg parlay, all submission props. And it was Stolyarenko, it was Jalen Turner, and both of those cash plus 700, plus 550. And the one that busted it all was Uriah Hall against this man, Andre Muniz, minus 110. I always say the chalk is where it goes to die. Once it gets to the chalk, you leave it alone on them sub props because it could just get dicey. But when I'm looking at a guy like Jin Young Park, I do think he's live to win this fight in rounds 2 and in rounds 3. I think he's live to win the fight by TKO or submission. We saw that potent jab last time against Albert Duraev. Hats off to him for that. But I faded him last time with Albert Duraev based on principle. I made my lines before I looked at anything, and I just said Jin Young Park, a little bit smaller guy for the division, a guy who I've seen hurt many times in his fights. I've seen him rocked. I've seen him wobbled. I've seen him struggle to get the takedowns at times. I've seen him taken down at times. I just think that he has a great plus level skill set. He can look like a massive hindsight favorite, but he can also get hurt. He can get finished. He can be made to look like he's not a big favorite. And we saw that against Eric Anders, where I bet the big chalk price and I felt dicey the whole time. Whereas Andre Muniz went out there and delivered in the first round and made it look easy against a guy that it's not easy to look good against in Eric Anders. So for me, Andre Muniz, live underdog here. But I do know some sharps on the other side, including my guy, Big Bird. So shout out to Big Bird. I know he's rocking with us in the chat. All love and respect, my brother. But for me, I do think Muniz is a live underdog here. Dravey, how do you feel, brother?
I agree with your breakdown, Liam, and the way you're kind of breaking down this fight, it's exactly how I did bet this fight. So let me know what you think. I bet Muniz to win in sub round 1 at plus 700 for 0.5 unit. Then I bet Park to win in round 2 at plus 550 for a unit, and I bet Park to win in round 3 at plus 1000 for a unit. So to me, I feel the way I view this fight is Muniz win condition is a sub early. That's I think. Can he get a sub in the early in the first 2 minutes of the second round? I think it's possible, and maybe he could survive the third round and win a close decision. Same for Park. He could win a decision, but I think that they both have finishing upside, and Muniz finishing upside is a sub early, and Park is going to take over after. I don't think Muniz has a good chin. I don't think he has good cardio. He's going to be bigger here, and he's going to, if he take the back early, going to be trouble for Park. So if Muniz win by sub round 1, I'm going to profit. And then if Park win by round 2 or round 3, whatever, I'm going to profit. So I feel like that's the best way to play this fight. Rather, I don't like the money line. Park ITD is decent. Muniz sub is decent. But yeah, I don't think it's I don't like the money line sides on this one. It's kind of simple, but it's either Park late or Muniz early. I feel like the type of pace, the type of cardio, the type of pressure that Park brings to fights going to break Muniz here. He doesn't like pressure, Muniz, and he has been kind of exposed lately. I know he was kind of looking good against Allen. I bet Allen had plus money in this spot, but feel like he was looking good, but I don't know how it's going to affect him mentally. Back-to-back loss. He was on a big win streak before that, So, yeah, you have the momentum with Park, and you have a guy that wants to be in the top 15, Muniz kind of want to stay there and kind of prove himself he's still that guy. And, yeah, his stand-up is decent. I don't think it's that bad. He has decent kicks. But, yeah, I feel like Park will be too much for him, and he's going to break him into the later rounds.
Fair play, man. And I got to shout out the last time that he fought a Brazilian was my guy Robocop Rodriguez. And that was the last time that I faded Jin Young Park prior to the Albert Duraev fight. I did cash that one. So very plus money long-term on the Jin Young Park fights. But some of them, I admit, I got lucky, like that Eric Anders one. That could have went either way. And certainly the people on plus money there were on the right side of things, given it was such a close decision. But Zach, how do you feel about this one, my man? I know that we spent some time talking about this one last night. And you had pointed out a lot of the things that I talked about as well in terms of some of the size. I had felt like there was going to be some size here, but then just looking at the intangibles on paper and then looking at them physically in their matchups, this is a guy that I think is going to be way bigger in the first round in Andre Muniz. So I think he's going to present some problems. How do you feel?
Yeah, so I think there's a possibility this fight goes to decision. I don't necessarily think if Muniz doesn't get it done early that he's going to absolutely get finished. I think it's a very highly likely chance, though. I see a lot of bets on Bet MMA tips for round 2, round 3, Jun Young Park, and I think the books are going to probably not want to pay that out. So I think if this does get past round 1, it would be generally probably going to be a Park finish. I could definitely see that because Muniz cardio, it definitely falls off a cliff. We saw him finish recently in his last fight by Paul Craig, but I think there's a little bit of recency bias here. I'm going to go out on a limb here, though. I think that Muniz is live for a KO early. I don't think he could just submit him. I think he's possible to KO this guy. And let me tell you why. He throws big strikes. It's middleweight. He has big kicks. He can go up high with the kicks. And that's a dangerous strike, man, especially at middleweight. If you look at the size difference, Muniz is going to be probably 20 pounds bigger than him in the octagon. And that's why he gasses the later the fight goes, in my opinion, because he just is probably cutting so much weight. Dude has a huge size advantage. These guys standing next to each other wouldn't look like they're in the same weight class. Yeah, man, I think he's live to chin Jun Young Park here. I've seen Park rock. I've seen Muniz rock people. He was hitting Allen with shots. Arm breaks we've seen be called as knockouts. That's one thing that's possible. Not saying it's going to happen here, but we just got to keep this in mind. Slams, stuff like that. Ground and pound knockouts. So I'm going with Andre Muniz here. to get the job done by knockout. I think you get the job done by round 1 knockout. I think people are thinking, oh, I'll just pay the round 1 sub. But the round 1 sub is what? Plus, let's look here real quick.
I got plus 700, but it's probably lower
on
now.
the round, okay, yeah, but let's compare it to just what round 1 is, right? It's probably not that much of a difference, and I think at that
round
point,
1, I think the best available was plus 550 last I looked.
okay,
And
so
I'm not sure if that's come down.
submission round 1's plus 650. Andre Muniz to win in round 1 is geez, I'm trying to find it here. I'm sorry.
550 is the best that I'm seeing. That was on DraftKings and FanDuel around 7 o'clock tonight.
Average is probably 500.
It's literally 100-point difference, so that's my only thing. I think it's worth to just play the round 1 at that point. The fight to end by KO is plus 175. Park to win by KO is plus 215. I think that's a statistical improbability. I'm getting plus 1,600. I don't know what it's at now, but I took plus 1,600 on the Muniz knockout. I think he could get it done in round 2, so a little bit smaller of a bet, though, on round 1 knockout, because I genuinely think that's when it's going to happen. But it could be in round 2. Like you said, though, probably in the first 2 minutes, because he gas tank problems, right? That's everybody's worry. But if he gets it done early, that shit don't matter, bro. He has a clear grappling advantage, clear size advantage, and the guy could wing bombs. This is middleweight. Jung Park, in my opinion, doesn't have the best durability. So that's where I'm going with this one. A little bit out there of a play, but I listed the multitude of ways I could see it going, and I'm going to stick with that.
I feel you, man. And if you remember that RoboCop fight, it made it to the second round, but it ended pretty quickly on into that second round, right? They both met back in the middle. They started throwing hands again, and RoboCop was rocked. Like, he looked like he was ready to be out of there. I had RoboCop at minus 110. I was like, well, all right, time to go throw this one out. And then RoboCop from the grave just starts throwing back and lands a big shot and hurts him. And for me, that's the one other concern I would have in this spot is just Andre Muniz. He does drop off a cliff. I can't deny it, right? But that opening to the second round, I feel like he's probably just going to look like himself. It's as the second round progresses, as you start to continue to pressure him, he will break. I felt like he was doing okay to open that second round, even against Craig. And then by the midpoint of that second round, he had broken. So he got taken down and he got finished. But I feel like he starts the round okay in round 2. And again, we've seen Jin Young Park. Is he a guy that normally just averts risk? Sometimes, like when he could take a John Phillips down and land 250 strikes, he will do that. But other times he's like, let's do it. Let's stand and bang and be warriors. And I'm like, not at minus 200, my brother. I cannot get behind that. So I do think he's a fun fighter, great style, but it's also like a style that has a ceiling and a floor, right? Like you could definitely see him get knocked out by guys that he's better than because he invites some volatility when he's exchanging. Go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, especially coming off a big win, he just got a knockout, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it a submission or a knockout versus Thrive? I believe it was a knockout, right? Does the little dance. Everybody who bet on him, right? They're like, okay, it was a sub, but he does the little dance after, and everybody who bet on him is like, Jun Young Park, he's the man. Love it. I'm going to bet on him again the next time. And everybody who bet against him is like, not going to hit me with that dance again. And they're afraid to bet Muniz, and that's what's happening here, brother. I think this is a complete recency bias spot. I think my man Liam hit it on the head here.
Awesome. I love when we agree. So there you have it, folks. We can move on from this one, but this is a spot where I think, we've given you a lot of different ways to target the fight. A lot of them are at plus money. And don't be surprised if I have both sides of this fight covered in some way or another, because that's something I'm thinking about doing here. Very volatile, but also seems like a clear read on both sides, in terms of potential outcomes. So I do think that some of the prices here are wild, just relative to like divisional averages and things like that. So you guys can all approach with whatever process you want, but I think that's something to keep in mind here. It's a middleweight fight at the end of the day. So there's a lot of inherent violence in that. Next up, we've got Nasrat Hackprast taking on Jamie Malarkey. Speaking of inherent violence, I don't think either one of these guys has great defense. So I think there will be some inherent violence in this one. Jamie Malarkey in particular, he's never met a punch that he wanted to defend, but he does have the takedown upside in this matchup, the grappling upside, I would say, because Nasrat Hackprast, has never really showed very much in terms of offensive wrestling and grappling throughout the course of his career, which is shocking coming out of TriStar. But most of what we see from him in terms of the wrestling and grappling is red flags, right? Dan Hooker just taking you down and auditing you in the grappling, not a great look for me. We've seen Dan Hooker take down other guys. Dustin Poirier. Is grappling and wrestling his strong suit in recent fights? No, it is not, right? So I think that those were fights where you see the takedowns go back and forth. Two guys that both aren't primary wrestlers. Oh, I surprised you with a takedown. You surprised me. He just out wrestled Nasrat like he was fighting for his job. Right. And he was. So I feel like you think of a guy like Dan Hooker as stand and bang, warrior to the end. Maybe he'll take you down in round 3 to just seal the round. But he just was auditing his skills and he looked way bigger as well. Nasrat's not that big a guy. And so I think that Jamie Malarkey, if he is smart, which he is not always shown to be, he could go out there and try and implement a wrestling heavy game plan and win this fight. So that's why people have asked me, do you think Nasrat's a good bet at minus 190? No, that's not me, brother. You'll never catch me betting that. Just the way I do it. Everybody can bet differently and have their process. I'm curious what you guys think of this fight. But for me, I look at a guy like Nasrat and he's got good boxing. And that's that. So I feel like he's pretty one-dimensional guy. That's the way I've always viewed him. And on the other side, I feel like Jamie Malarkey, kind of a bonehead, but a guy that has some real skill when he takes it to the ground. So I think that this should be, a spot where if Jamie Malarkey's winning, it's a boring ass fight. And if Jamie Malarkey's losing, it's an awesome highlight reel finish because Jamie Malarkey does love to get posterized. So interesting fight. Dravey, how do you feel about it, my man?
Yeah, I agree with for the most part, Liam. I did lay some juice on Nasrat here though, at minus 170, but the angle is I also bet the KO. Let me just figure out the number I got. Yeah, I got the KO. I doubled down actually. I got plus 350 and then plus 450. I just feel like these numbers are off, Liam. Like if it go the distance, it's probably going to be close. Maybe Malarkey have success with wrestling, but we have seen recently that Malarkey's durability and just chin in general starting to go in his career. Like he took a lot of damage. He got bunked by Naiva. I think that was a bad look. He got finished by Turner. I don't put anything against him for that. And then the Makdisi fight, I bet Malarkey in this fight, and that was kind of a bad look. You cannot argue that he lost the fight, right? So with that being said, if he lost the Makdisi fight, he could be on a 2-fight losing streak. And the Michael Johnson fight, I bet Michael Johnson in this fight, and I thought that Malarkey lost. So, and he got dropped in this fight also. So to me, in this fight, the problem I have even for liking Malarkey at these odds is Nasrat is very durable. Like he's way more durable than Malarkey. I know he has been KO'd before also, like by Drew Dober and guy like that. But I mean, he's more durable than Malarkey, and Malarkey can be trusted in these type of fight. I feel like when you have a guy that has speed and power and the boxing that Nasrat has, I feel like he's gonna catch him at some point in this fight. Malarkey could have success with wrestling. I think the leg kick's gonna be a good weapon for him. You'll be dumb to not use leg kicks. We have seen Nasrat struggle with that in his last fight, and yeah, I can't trust Malarkey to wrestle heavy, and I can't trust him to not get bunked at some point. They're gonna swing and bang, and Nasrat's gonna catch him. He's pretty fast and he has power. That's what he does. I know he has been to a lot of decision. That's why we're getting these type of price. But plus 350, plus 450 for the KO. I mean, to me, that's a very good bet. Like you said, maybe if you go the distance, maybe Malarkey can win the fight, or it can be close. Maybe Nasrat win based on damage and knockdowns. But yeah. I like Nasrat here. I think he gets a KO.
You know, man, if I was to bet a prop on the Nasrat side, that's the one that stood out to me as like pretty clearly mispriced here. I know he hasn't produced many knockouts in the UFC, but it's about opponents, right? He's not going to knock out Bobby Green, right? I'm laying the chalk on Bobby Green in that spot. I thought that Dan Hooker maybe could be an opportunity. You're not going to knock somebody out if you're on hands and knees the whole fight, right? So that was just a kind of surprise. I actually bet him there at plus 166. So I just got to put my hands up to guy. I didn't see that one coming at all. So then I'm looking at a plus 440 in this spot against the Jamie Malarkey. And I do say to myself, wow, that seems like a little bit of a misprice. So even as a Nasrat, skeptic, I think that is the most playable price on his side on this fight for sure. Zach, how do you feel about this fight, my man? Any value to be had for you?
Yeah, I'm curious why Malarkey sub is only plus 1,400. Because the guy's never, I don't think he's ever gotten a submission in his career, if I'm looking at it. Nasrat, I don't remember him getting submitted.
I think once regionally. I could be
Yes, that's
wrong about that.
interesting.
That's from memory.
That's just kind of seems like a little bit of a low line to me. I think for some reason I think that should be a little bit higher. But I think everyone thinks this is going to be a stand-up fight. I think this is going to be a grappling match. And what I saw in the face-offs, Nasrat kind of said to him like, "Hey, it's going to be a great fight. We're going to like kind of goading him into like, hey, yeah, that agreement, right? No takedowns." But I don't think that they're going to agree to that here. I think Malarkey's going to try and put him on his back. Another Aussie had success. Is Dan Hooker a wrestler? Just like my man Liam said, no, he's a kickboxer. He was able to have success a lot in that fight. Another interesting thing about Nasrat that a lot of people probably don't know is he had 5 surgeries last year before that Quinones fight. Quinones, I don't rate him highly at all. Not saying that he can be a good prospect, but coming in, he talked about getting that fight on like a week and a half notice, having to travel halfway across the world 14 hours. I just don't think this is going to be a stand-up fight all the way. I don't think Malarkey's terribly undurable. He did get knocked out by Naimov, but Naimov did beat Nathaniel Wood in his last fight. So is he a complete bum?
I had Naimov there.
Naimov.
Yo, bro, we got bailed out by him kneeing him in the balls, poking him in the eye. If he's not cheating, he's not trying. I love Naimov. Thank you, brother. But will I ever bet him again against somebody good? No, I will not.
Yeah, there you go. But he got the job done still at the end of the day. He got the win. I don't think the guy's a complete fraud. He was able to crack Malarkey. A lot of people are low on Malarkey, too, because he lost that. He won the Johnson fight. A lot of people are on Johnson there. They were really upset. Then, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he fought Prado after that. Everyone and their mother on the under 2.5. Everybody and their mother is on the under 2.5 in that fight. What happens? Malarkey goes out there. What does he do? He wrestles. This fight isn't favored to go under like that one. It's a minus 240, but let's keep going. Next fight gets sparked by Naimov. Naimov was a huge underdog. People are actually parlaying Malarkey. Those people probably really pissed as well. Comes out in his next fight versus McDessie. Oh, he didn't win that fight. It was a robbery. So I'm just saying, what's the narrative on Malarkey right now? He's what? What's his record in his last 5 fights? He's got
2.
Okay, so he's 3-2.
I just don't think math. I was out there like, oh shit.
No, you're good. You're good. I just think this guy, for having a 3-2 record, he might as well be 0-5 is what I'm trying to say, and people in the fans' mind. I think this could be a parlay buster. Generally, a lot of Tapology votes are on Nasrat. I think he's going to be a big parlay piece this week. I think Malarkey uses the wrestling here, and people are frustrated. And Aussie wrestling, Aussie, oi, oi, oi.
Best of luck to you. So there you have it. You got the sharp side for both ends of this fight, and that makes me not want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. I don't feel that bullish on either side anyway. And we've got 2 sharp opinions dissenting here. So if I was to get involved, if I was to try and play for that plus money angle, I would probably be looking at Nasrat by KO and Jamie Malarkey by sub, full well knowing that it could be a boring stinker that goes the distance. But just looking at where I think both guys have a potential edge, that's where I see it. And I don't think that Jamie Malarkey is going to go out there and submit him in the first round. He's not some jiu-jitsu ace. He's not a savant like that. He just could potentially break him down over time and, look for that sub late. So that's kind of the way I see it going. But more often than not, a Jamie Malarkey win is more like watching paint dry. So we'll see how it turns out, unless he's fighting a complete gasser. But next up, guys, Su Mudaerji is taking on Tim Elliott in what promises to be fireworks in the bantamweight division. So 2 guys that typically would fight at flyweight. Now they're going to be taking on one another in the 135-pound division. And Su Mudaerji is a guy that took some time off. I believe he fought at UFC Long Island. Things did not go his way against Matt Schnell, but he had a lot of success. He had a lot to build on there. But I was saying on my show earlier this week, that's the kind of fight you want to have one time in your career, right? Like, oh, fight of the year, crazy banger. And then every other time you want it to be performance of the night because he took a ton of damage in that fight. It shelved him for a long time. He wasn't able to stay active. So you see the ramifications when you go out there and put on these barn burners, can really set back your career, can really hurt your standing potentially in the division as well. So now Tim Elliott on short notice, that's not an easy assignment. And I do think that on the other side, Tim Elliott's got to step here on short notice. And he's already a guy that has some cardio issues, some durability issues. He's a little bit older for the division. So I think that's a reason why we're seeing this at 135. I don't think Tim Elliott is making 125 pounds on short notice like that, and getting cleared by the commission. So in any case, this seems to me like a fight that has some inherent volatility. You got two guys with 5 submission losses. And I do think that if this fight plays out on the feet, I think there's a clear power advantage for Umagudomedov. I think that his striking is a little more clean. I think he's more fluid and more comfortable on the feet. Tim Elliott, awkward MMA, right? He's got that weird style, but a lot of it's herky-jerky bullshit, right? So a lot of times people that have real striking just don't feel fazed by it. They try and apply their own craft through what he's doing. So it's not always easy to land on him, but when he does get hit, when he does get touched, he could start to tire out. He could start to slow down. He could start to second guess himself, and he can be out-grappled, right? So he's a guy that has out-grappled a lot of guys, but we also see him slow down over the course of his fights. We've seen him take rounds off. We've seen him give up bad positions. And I think that that could be the thing that costs him badly in a fight like this. Umagudomedov showed in that last fight, he's a tough guy. He's a grinder. He's willing to stay in the fire, but he just got outworked, right? Matt Schnell found 9 lives, right? He was a cat that night because truth be told, Matt Schnell time traveled 16 times in that fight. He's like looking off in the distance, like, where are we? Why are we fighting? Why is this man so mad at me? But he kept finding his way back, and he was coachable. He found a way to win. God bless him for it. But that was just a crazy war where both guys were running on autopilot for a lot of the fight. I do think that Umagudomedov has shown some improvements. He has taken a pretty easy road in the UFC. This is going to be one of his harder fights, but he also is at a point where he's coming off of surgery. He's coming back to the octagon, and he needs to get going right now. So I feel like Umagudomedov is being put in a position to succeed here, but it's not going to be easy, right? He has this little short notice change. Can he deal with that adversity? We'll find out, but he's a short underdog in this fight, and I think that he's very live to get the knockout. I had mentioned to somebody in the past, next time Tim Elliott fights a striker, fights anybody with power, I got to fade this guy. Because even that Victor Altamirano fight, I just didn't think Tim was showing off the best finishing acumen in his own right. But 2 guys with so many submission losses, I'm like, this one's almost bound to end inside the distance one way or the other. I feel like somebody's going to make a catastrophic error on the feet or on the ground before all is said and done. So for me, I'm going to go with Umagudomedov here, but I'm doing it reluctantly. I'm more so leaning towards a violent end one way or the other. And we'll kick it first to Dravey. Do you agree or disagree, my man?
Man, I can't say any better, bro. You perfect breakdown, Liam. So I think Sue win. I think he get a KO, but I can't trust his money line. And I think he's either going to win by KO or he's going to get sub. That's a classic striker versus grappler matchup. And they both have finishing upside depending on who can fight their fight, right? So the under 2.5 was minus 110. I got that kind of big. It was plus money at some point, switched to 0.5, and then they put it back to 2.5. I like that better than picking money line, but the line's going up on Sue, and I'm tempted, man. It's plus 140 now, I think, plus 138. Yeah, if he gets to plus 150, plus 160 tomorrow, I might have to bet him. I think his footwork's going to cause problems to Tim. His power is going to be too much, I feel like. And Tim's on short notice. He's 37 years old. The fight being at 135 is good for him. He didn't have to cut much weight. Probably looks good on the scales. But again, he's not like he's a good grappler when he can grapple offensively, and he's a decent wrestler. But he does a lot of mistakes on the ground, and suit takedown defense is not that bad. So what happened if Tim tried to shoot 2 takedown and he doesn't get them? Like, he's gonna get KO at some point, I feel. Yeah, he has bad cardio now. He slow down in fight. He make mistakes. He's super hittable. I bet him kind of big against Altamirano, and he kind of made me sweat, bro. I thought that would be an easy fight because Altamirano takedown defense and ground game is very bad. And dude, that was like, I don't remember the odds, but that was a close odds. So I feel like that was a good bet because he 31. But he made me sweat, and I thought it will be easy. So yeah, the Tiger fight, he looks good, but he cheats many times to win. So Yeah, he's gonna cheat. If you want to back him, he's gonna cheat to win. But he's minus 160. He's on a week notice. He's 37 years old, and he's fighting a guy who's the better striker, who's faster and has more power. So choose the side for me. But as of now, I only have the under 2.5. I like this spot a lot. At pick 'em odds, come on, man. Feel like this should be way higher than that. But I might be on Sue at some point if the odds getting a little bit higher. Oh, I was on Schnell in his last fight. He was coming back after his knee surgery. That was a banger, man. One of the second round of this fight. If you have not watched this fight yet, go after the show, go watch Matt Schnell versus Sue. All the fight, but the round 2 especially, man, that was crazy. So yeah, I was on Matt Schnell in this fight, and let me tell you something. I got lucky, man. That was banger, but I got lucky. And yeah, he was coming back after the knee surgery, right? So that was his first fight coming back after that. So I think he might look even better now. We also have to consider that he has a full camp, and he was also training to fight a grappler. So he was prepared to defend takedowns. He's not now fighting a big striker, so he's still fighting grappler. So same style of matchup for him, but a way easier matchup in my opinion, because Nascimento would have snapped that neck pretty easily, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, man, to your point, if you're trying to just rate who's more dangerous, it's not even close. Nascimento is a more dangerous grappler, in my view, than Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott might be a better wrestler. He might be able to outgrind you and, do his little gimmicky stuff. But I do kind of think to myself, he's not that dangerous, right? If you're not submitting Victor Altamirano, to your point, that was, to me, a great opportunity for him if he was levels above on the ground to show it off. Didn't have that juice when it came down to it. He had a lot of time on top. Not too much to show for it.
Nascimento sub was plus 160, Liam. They canceled me that bet, bro. I was so pissed. I think that was easy money, but
Vegas made a call, bro. They picked up. They're not going to happen.
It is what it is, right?
Yeah, that's what Ricky's saying the same thing. He thought that Nascimento was going to sub him with ease. So there you have it. Zach, what are your thoughts here, my brother?
Could not wait to go on this fight because you guys are saying it. You guys are saying it, but you're not seeing it. You're saying it, but you're not seeing it. This fight's going to go under 2.5, right? We could agree on that. We love the under 2.5. We think it's going to be Sue inside the distance by knockout or Elliott by sub. That's the way. We all thought the same thing with Wellington Turman and Jared Gooden. Wasn't the case. Go ahead, Dravey. Go ahead, Dravey. Tell me what you're going to tell, because you know what I'm going to say.
I'm just thinking, are you going to say it's Sue by sub or it's Tim by KO?
No, I don't think Tim's going to knock him out. I don't see that at all. When is Tim Elliott?
That's a sub at some point.
Yes, sir. And I'm going to tell you why. And nobody thought Talbot was going to get the sub. Nobody thought Talbot was going to get the sub in round 3. But Sumaderzi's submission is round 3 right now is plus 9,000. I think you're absurd not to bet on that. You guys mentioned all the points. Elliott is gassy. He puts himself in bad positions on the ground. Everybody thinks Sumaderzi's an absolute fish. I'm not under that narrative here. He took a tough matchup against Alan Nascimento. You don't think the guy has confidence in his skills? I think he's 26 years old, young and improving. He's the younger fighter, so I favor him to win here. I favor him to win inside the distance. Why can't he get a club and sub here? I had to bet this at plus 2,000. It's sitting at plus 2,500 on DraftKings. Guys, take a shot on this. Team Alpha Male, what are they known for? The guillotine. What has Tim Elliott been caught in before? Easily, the guillotine. Anytime this guy's in a submission, go back and look at his career. I'm not going to call him a quitter, but it doesn't take long for him to tap. He's putting an arm triangle, it's a tap. He's putting a guillotine that some people will fight out of, it's a tap. Sumaderzi, one front choke in his career early on. This guy's grappling is improving every day. What's the easy way out? A club and sub? Or this guy gets tired and gas like Nick Fiore. He's sniffing for the crotch. Sumaderzi knows enough just to take the back. Tim Elliott takes the noble way out. We've seen it time and time again. We're going Sumaderzi here by submission. I think that's the best value on this fight. For a fight where Elliott, who's like 1-6 to the sub on his career, is a plus 250 to win by submission, but the fight to end by submission is a plus 240? That doesn't make sense to me, brother, and I think Sumaderzi is going to get the submission here. Please, if you're out there, if you're watching this, Bet Sumaderji by submission, round 3. Just sprinkle it. It's plus 9,000. How wrong could you be? Good luck, guys.
The refuge of the underdog better. How wrong could you be? I absolutely love it, my man. So there you have it. Another different way to target this fight. And I think that you're speaking my language, my man. We talk about it all the time from a long-term theoretical standpoint, how you can extract value. I think that you're looking the right direction. So with that being said, let's move it along to the next fight where Anthony Smith will be taking on Khalil Roundtree Jr. And Dravy, I'm going to throw it right to you, brother. How do you feel about this matchup?
I know people love the dog in Smith in this one. I don't. I know that Roundtree can get exposed if he gets if the mat can be an insta sub, right? But the problem is Smith is not really shooting takedowns, and I think he's washed. He's also on short notice. He doesn't like being hit anymore. He doesn't take damage as well, and I also think that the Walker and the Span fight should have been both KO lost for him. He managed a way to survive, and Walker was not interested to finish him later on this fight. But man, the leg kicks is going to be a weapon for Roundtree. I know he's not leg kicks heavy, but when he snapped that leg's going. He's snapping that leg for real. And I just don't see a way where Roundtree and Smith strike together for more than 5 to 6 minutes and Smith survive. I know he has been durable, but I don't think he's as durable anymore. Like I said, I don't think he likes being hit anymore. So if you don't like being hit and you're getting hit by Roundtree, man, I don't think that's going to end well, buddy. And again, he's not really shooting a lot of takedowns. So what I did here, I think that this fight's going to end early. I think it's going to end under 1.5. I think it's either going to be Roundtree by KO or Smith by sub. Smith is kind of light for KO if he gets on top. He has good ground and pound. But it can be just an insta sub if the fight hit the mat, right? So I played the under 1.5 in this spot, but I also played the Roundtree money line in a parlay with another leg we're going to talk about soon. Just because remember the Eric Ender fights and just remember Smith's last 2 fights, right? He just took a shit ton of damage and he survived to a decision. I know people think that if the fight go over, it might favor Smith. I don't really think so. Roundtree has shit cardio at time, I know, but Smith cardio is not that good anymore. He's on short notice, like I said. And if anyone get knockdowns, that's going to be Roundtree. Roundtree is going to be more damage. And I don't see Smith controlling him for 15 minutes on the ground. If he gets to the ground, that's going to be early and that's going to be a sub or a finish on the ground, right? So either Smith's going to finish him early or he's going to get fucked up in a decision or he's going to just get KO. I tend to think that Roundtree is going to find the finish early. And yeah, I like him in this spot a lot. People talking about him being a mental case. And so is Anthony Smith. He's talking about Walker attacking his family in the middle of the cage, So Roundtree had a shit performance against Praxino. That was a long time ago. Yeah, like since then, he's on a big win streak, and I think he found himself back. But people just go back to that fight. You can't trust him. You can trust him against Dawkins. Dawkins has BJJ. I bet the under 1.5, I think, in this spot, or Roundtree by KO 1 and Roundtree by KO 2. The fight before, he was like a pick'em against Carl Robinson, I think. Crazy. No, he was plus money. I think I bet him at plus money. Crazy. And he was against Jacob. Oh yeah, okay. So this one is a robbery in my opinion. I bet Jacob in this fight, and I feel like I got robbed. I think that he shouldn't have not win that fight, but it is what it is, right? The Buckus KO was nasty. But yeah, so since the Prachino fight, he has been looking good. And this fight was 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. So yeah, Smith has a lot of mileage on his body. We need to consider that's 50 pro fights. He's at the end of his career. I know he's talking about a title shot, but I think that he's going to get killed brutally in this fight and he might think of retirement.
Yeah, I would not be too surprised. I got to be honest. I'm not a Khalil Roundtree guy either, but it's not to say that this is a matchup that he can't win, right? This is obviously a matchup he could win. Anthony Smith, last time out, looked horrendous, right? You just look at the drop-off from the last time he fought Ryan Spann, and he just cleaned him up easily in the first round, to the second time he fought Ryan Spann. It's like, he's out there having half a heart attack, just trying to hold on in that fight at times. But I also think, like, Khalil Roundtree, at a certain point in fights, like, can just get overwhelmed. I don't think Iwan Kutalaba is better than Khalil Roundtree at anything. Like, maybe he's a better wrestler overall, but just like, if you look at that fight, raw aggression and like enthusiasm were the two attributes. I'd say Iwan Kutalaba used to get the win. He basically just really wanted to be there and got in his face and beat him up. And like there was no sophistication to it. And Khalil was like trying to compose himself. He's like, you could see it. He's like taking big, deep breaths and like putting his guard back up and stuff. But then he just eventually like concedes. He just like broke in that moment. And that is why I think he has a negative record in terms of ROI as a favorite. But when you're looking at like the recent performances from Khalil Roundtree, I've expected the same kind of regression. And then he knocks out Dawkins in the first, exchange. And I look like a fool, right? So that was not a guy that is a proven light heavyweight. Anthony Smith is a proven light heavyweight. But when you look at Anthony Smith, he was a proven light heavyweight, and he seems to have been on a severe career decline. So I see everything that you're talking about, man. And I feel like there's a lot of projecting in this fight that I don't want to do. So for me, Anthony Smith, if he's going to win this fight, he's probably got to grab a hold of Khalil and submit him, right? I feel if this fight is on the feet, it's going to be a problem for Anthony Smith. And then his best case scenario is like gross decision on the feet, really close, back and forth. So I don't want to bet into that, especially at 2-1. I understand why people were like, yo, Anthony Smith at 2-1 against Khalil. Like this could look really silly. I agree with them. That could look really silly. But conversely, the people that took the 2-1 on Khalil Roundtree at the beginning of this betting cycle, hats off to you as well. Great bet. Obviously, just looking at where the number closed, probably the biggest correction I would think on this fight card. Certainly has to be one of them. So shout out to the people that got in early. Shout out to the people that found a way to find value on the fight. But for me, this is probably going to be a stay away. For my ideas list that I made, the under 1.5 was on there. So we're seeing a lot of the same things here. I do feel like somebody's getting this done in the early going. Smith by sub was a thought for me. 6-1. Ooh, not a great price. And then on Roundtree, I feel like all of his, props are going to be pretty mushed here. So with that being said, we can move along to this main event, my brother, and it's a good one. We've got Song Yadong taking on Chris Gutierrez. Would have been awesome if Song Yadong could have got that Shanghai homecoming. I believe he was the opener for the last time that they were in Shanghai, and now he has ascended, my man. He's all the way up to that main event, and he's a guy that I feel like has been unheralded for a while, I was in a position where I felt very lucky to cash plus 450 on Corey Sandhagen by KO TKO. I didn't necessarily expect Corey to, just rock him or what. I just thought he might be able to take him to the ground, control him, beat him up, and outlast him over 5 rounds there. And what we saw instead was Song Yadong was coming on. He was pressuring Corey. I felt like Corey was really starting to wear it a little bit in that fight, but luckily the cut stoppage gets the deliverance that he needed there. So got me the plus 450, but I will say I've always been impressed by Song Yadong and the work that he's able to do inside the octagon. Very durable guy, has a lot of power. If he's able to deal with the leg kicks, I feel like that's the biggest question of the matchup. But I also think that he's got the grappling upside of these two fighters. So for me, that is what makes me lean towards Song Yadong being the side here. But it's a massive money line price as well for a main event. Typically, you see a little bit closer odds, unless we're seeing a complete mismatch. And I don't think Gutierrez is a bum. I don't think he's bad fighter or something. I just think he's overmatched here. I don't know where he's going to have many advantages unless he's able to get off on those low kicks early and often and disrupt the movement and the rhythm of Song Yadong, who I expect to be faster, more durable, and has more paths to victory. So for me, that's the read on the fight, but I'm curious to know what my guests think of this one. Dravey, a great main event in the bantamweight division. Give us your thoughts, brother.
Yeah, that's a good fight. And I hope after that we're going to get Song versus Peter Yan. I think that's another banger. Tapes are always important. And pre-tape, I saw Gutierrez was plus 315 on a book. I was interested. So I was going into the fight thinking, let me find a way to bet Gutierrez. I want to bet him. The leg kicks, the movements, it's going to be probably a problem for Song and all that. And then at the end of my tip study, I ended up saying that if the leg kicks and the movement is going to be maybe problems, but except of that, it's all Song. Like he has the pressure to crow the kicker in this type of matchup. In my opinion, he has more power. He's more durable. If anyone has wrestling upside, that's going to be Song. If anyone win by sub, that's going to be Song. He's younger. He fought better competition. he has 5 rounds experience. So we don't know how Gutierrez is going to fight after 15 minutes. I've seen him slow down in the third round in some fights. I've seen him get in wrestle. I've seen him get dropped by guys like Pedro Munoz. If you struggle to beat or to not get knocked down by a guy like Munoz, I feel like Song at this point of his, in his career now, he's just a better version than Munoz. He's more powerful and he's faster. And yeah, I feel like I know that Zach might come here and say that Song's gonna get a sub. I have a feeling he's gonna say that. But yeah, maybe Song get a sub at some point. I think it's gonna be a KO personally. But yeah, I just think Gutierrez is outmatched here. He's a good fighter, good footwork, good leg kicks. But again, Song's a dog. I don't think he's gonna. He doesn't. I don't think he will care about the leg kicks. And you have a plan B. If it doesn't work out on the feet, he's gonna try to go on there and wrestle. So yeah, he looks very good against Ricky Simone. I think that was a very impressive performance. And I think Song is ready for the next step now. He's a top 5 fighter. So I think he's going to get a finish here, prove his point, and get a big fight after that. I play Song at minus 350 in a parlay, and also play the ITD at plus 100. That's 5 rounds. I think the finish is going to come at some point. They didn't want to pick the KO at plus 130 or something when the ITD is plus 100, and I think the guillotine is live. And I played the money line just to cover myself, feel like he could win a decision. But again, I favor him in a decision based on knockdown, damage, and just pressure in general or wrestling. I favor him for a KO, and I favor him for a sub, you know? So when you have a big favorite like that, a minus 350, but you favor him by all the method of victories, that's a justified big favorite. And again, he fought better competition. He's younger and more durable. So yeah, give me Song to get a finish at some point. Can't wait to see his next fight after.
Oh shit! Sharp Batters in the comments says Gutierrez out jabs him pretty soundly after 7 minutes. So the dissenting point of view as well. But I agree with your points, Javy. I think that when I'm looking at this fight, I see a guy that has the advantage in all paths to victory, but I'm also not seeing a pushover in Gutierrez. I'm not seeing a punk. I'm not seeing a guy who's not a good fighter. But I just think we saw Pedro Munoz go out there and lay out a blueprint for how you could beat him. And I think that this is a guy who has better hardware to pull off the same type of game plan. So the only question is, can he do the same thing that Pedro did, neutralizing the leg kicks and firing back with his own? Because I think that was a huge difference maker there. And the other thing I've pointed out many times in the last few weeks, because it's been relevant for these bantamweight matchups, Pedro Munoz has one of the best chins in the history of the division. That gives you a ton of confidence. But I think Song Yadong, similar archetype, right? Very good chin for this division. We've never really seen many people test it. The TKO loss to Sandhagen, he wanted to keep going, right? He had no second doubts about that. But let's kick it over to Zach for the final verdict of the night. How do you feel about this matchup, my brother?
Yeah, man, I think from a money line standpoint, I think Gutierrez are pass here, in my humble opinion. I think Gutierrez has the low kicks. At any point, we saw it versus Jonathan Martinez with Adrian Yanez. 2 low kicks, the fight was over. 2. That's all it took. It's a damaging strike. And as good as Song Yadong is, if his front wheel is taken out of him in the first minute of the fight, it could get dicey from there. I think he'd be the perfect parlay buster for the books this weekend as well. Just bring it out at the end just to get anything that's left. But yeah, I had to take the stab at plus 1,600 at the sub. You were 100% right. Because what I'm hoping for, I got the plus 1,600. It's not the same number now. That's the problem. Or we'll take the alpha male parlay. We might put that in with the subs. But nah, I like Song Nurmagomedov here. He's going to come out. Song Magomedov. He's going to wrestle. He's going to get this one to the ground. And he's going to smash, brother. He's going to smash. But I think at this number, it's getting a little sketchy. I feel a little more comfortable on other props on the card. I just think the numbers come down a little bit, and it's best to either kind of just pass at this point. If you get like plus 1,000 or better, I think it's worth a shot, though. Song is going to win this fight most likely inside the distance. That's what's favored to happen here. Plus 1,600. I'd have been an idiot to not take that number, and it shows in the market because that's a certified market mover right there. I like this one, though. I agree with everything you said, Dravey. Last point I'm going to make, I think he has the advantages here in the boxing, the stand-up. I think he has he has durability. I think the cardio I'd edge a little bit towards Song as well. Both guys can go deep in the fight. Interesting tidbit. This is the last thing I'll say is they did have that Mark Montoya tribute last week. Cody Brundage comes out right after that, gets a slam knockout win. I want to go narrative nation on everybody here, but that's a possibility. But I think this is Song's fight to win here. It's supposed to be in China. I personally think it's Hyan Sung Park who messes everybody up here. But, man, Song Yadong would be a perfect parlay buster, wouldn't he? So I wouldn't be laying chalk on the minus 350 personally, but it should hit. And that's what I got on this fight, man. I think Song's going to come out and grapple. He has to avoid the low kick. And he should win this fight here, man, pretty easily.
Well, there we have it, guys. I think that we've laid out a lot of different bets that you could take on this card. We've bantered back and forth, and I appreciate everybody for taking the time to rock with us. It is 1:14 in the morning local time, so I want to get my guests out of here, but the last thing that I need from them is to let the people know where they can find you and all the great work that you're doing, and appreciate you guys once again for being here. So, Dravey, starting with you, brother, where can the people, find all the great work that you're doing?
Hey, thanks, bro, for having me once again. It's always a fun show with you guys. So yeah, guys, you can follow me on Twitter. It's Dravey_, and I have my Linktree link in my bio, so you can see all my shows, all my betting tips, everything. My Telegram also, and I'm gonna have one or two big announcements coming in the next few days. So make sure you follow my Twitter and stay tuned. It's Dravey_. So yeah. Gonna be a good card, man. I can't wait. It's not the most fun card ever, but betting wise, I think it's a good one. So let's make money again.
Yeah, and brother, I'm a fight fan first, but on this show, we're always looking to make money any which way that we can. We'll turn on a fighter after one bet that they win for us. We'll go right the other way. It doesn't matter. We're chasing that money. We're chasing that bag. So appreciate everybody that's on the same hustle with us. And like we always say, whether you're tailing us, whether you're fading us, whether you're with us or against us, we appreciate you being here. We appreciate your feedback as well. But, respect the process. We're out here giving you our time, our feedback, our energy, and a lot of, information, thought, research goes into these plays. So appreciate your time, brother. Thank you for your input and all the sharp information that you gave on the show. Now, as for our guy, Zach, where can the people find you, brother?
Yeah, I'm a line mover, but I just wanted to go. My man Dravey up here, a very sharp individual himself, gave out some great picks on this show today, and I wanted to thank him. I actually enjoy being on the panel with him. I will just let that be known right away. We did the last one on UFC 292. It was unanimous on that one. We had some slight disagreements. I feel like this one, it was like we kind of agree on the fights every way, but we just have these little slight disagreements that are I think this guy's going to win by decision. He's going to win by submission or stuff like that, which was cool. And I enjoy that little back and forth. And it's good to be inquisitive too, because if we're all just on the same side, right, just like my man Liam said, it's just going to be an echo chamber. And I don't want that. I never want to be on a show like that. So that's the one thing I like about this show that much. And that's all to thanks to this dude Liam right here, who I seen put in the work, man. This dude will be up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and he's studying everything from NFL to the UFC, and very knowledgeable individual. I saw a comment on one of his things from, I think it was the dude Nate Brown, but he said something that was very interesting to me. It's I didn't necessarily tail your bets, but you've given me the process now. And that's the best thing an MMA handicapper could do, is to help you make more knowledgeable decisions and be able to do that yourself. So I wanted to say that about my man Liam. Appreciate that about you. So shout out to both you guys. Good stuff today.
Appreciate you, my brother. The ethos of this show always is the good guys versus the books each and every week. The reason I started this show is because I wanted to help other people. I felt like I was good at picking fights, and I've kept a record. You guys can go back and look. I was a losing MMA bettor when I first started out. I was just a guy with an opinion, but I wanted to make sure that if people were really taking my opinion serious, then I was giving out an opinion worthwhile. You can look at the progression over time. I've really tried to study up. We got all the books here. We've done a little learning over time. And we've also learned to manage our risk, and every week go in knowing that it's about making more good bets and less bad bets. The more we do that, more money we're going to make long-term. I'm here each and every week, whether it goes well or it goes poorly on that one iteration. We're back at it next week to do it all again. So I hope that you guys will be here to join us once again next week when we're going at it. Make sure that you get subscribed to the channel if you're not already. Drop a like on this video. It really helps other people find the show as well. I'm going to be up all night. I got articles to write. I got spreadsheets to make. We ain't done yet. We go to sleep when the job is finished. So if you guys are interested in more content, more stuff that we're doing, go ahead and find me everywhere at LiamPicksFights. I appreciate the support. If you want all my bets, all my information, that is all in the description box below. But without further ado, I'm letting you guys go for the night. Thank you all. Get that one more sleep that John Anik always talks about, because we're coming back tomorrow and the fights are on. Thank you all so much for your time and attention. And until next time, come back. We're having all the same fun again. Take care, everybody.